让雨落有着呢。
Hey Freedom Fighters, this is Kala here at Students for Free Tibet International Headquarters bringing you SFTtv. SFTtv is your source for news, information, updates from SFT HQ right here in New York City. Today is March 20th, 2008. First things first is the news. This is from Associated Press. China blankets Tibetan areas with troops. China blanketed restive Tibetan areas Thursday with huge buildup of troops, turning small towns across a wide swath of western China into armed encampments. Hundreds of paramilitary troops aboard at least 80 trucks were seen traveling along the main road winding through the mountains into southeastern Tibet. Others have set up camp and patrolled streets in riot gear, helmets, and rifles in the town of Tiger Leaping Gorge, a tourist attraction in Yunnan province bordering Tibet. Farther north, the largely Tibetan town of Zhongjian, renamed Shangri-La a decade ago, was swarmed by 400 armed police. Many carried rifles and what appeared to be tear gas launchers. This is from The Telegraph, UK. China admits firing on Tibetan protesters. China has admitted firing on Tibetan protesters for the first time as it sent in tens of thousands more troops to restore order. State media said that 4 Tibetan, quote, rioters, end quote, had been wounded when police opened fire on Sunday in the town of Aba, Sichuan province, neighboring Tibet. It did not give details, but Tibet support groups said at least 12 people died in a protest, which began in Kirti Monastery in Aba. Monks in Dharamsala, the seat of the Tibetan government in exile in India, have released photographs of what they claim are some of the dead. Until now, the Chinese government has refused to confirm reports of shootings by security forces in response to the unrest in Tibet and surrounding regions. So, obviously, a lot has happened in the past week. We are seeing a revolution happening right before our eyes. This uprising is being blamed by Wen Jiabao and other Chinese leaders on outside foreign influences and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which is absolutely ridiculous. This is something that started with Tibetans inside Tibet, and now is the time to show your support. Now is the time to rise up alongside Tibetans all over the world that are protesting, from San Francisco to Sydney, Chicago to London, Poland to New Delhi. This is a global uprising for the Tibetan people, and a lot of folks are like, well, aren't there lots of violent protests? The violence that has been happening in Tibet for the past 50 years is what we need to talk about, what we need to address. The violence of being oppressed by the Chinese Communist government it's not even, I mean, I can't even put it into words. The violence that the Chinese security forces implemented on March 10th when thousands of Tibetan monks staged a peaceful protest is what we need to talk about. A broken window, a tagged up building. I mean, the world needs to focus on how the Chinese government is cracking down on the Tibetan people, and there have been some Tibetans that said those that were shot and killed are the lucky ones, because now the Chinese government is going to respond extremely harshly on the Tibetan people inside Tibet. This is the biggest uprising for the past 20 years, and this wasn't just in Lhasa and Utsang. This was in Amdo and Kham, in areas that have been relatively quiet. I mean, in the streets, nomadic people in Amdo were riding their horses, calling for free Tibet. In Labrang, in Amdo as well, monks were carrying aloft a giant picture of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. This is huge. This is earth-shaking. This is a monumental period in our world history, and it is up to the world, it's up to the global community to stand alongside the Tibetan people right now. And a lot of people are wondering, what can I do? What can I possibly do to stop the violence in Tibet by Chinese security forces? Pressure your congressional representatives to condemn the violence that the Chinese government is using against peaceful Tibetan protesters. Pressure the United Nations to send a fact-finding delegation to see how many people have actually been killed by the Chinese government. Do not let them cover this up once again. And in more action terms, on April 8th and 9th in San Francisco, the Olympic torch will be touching down in San Francisco. It's only stop in North America, and we need to be out there. We need to be out in the streets. If you want to find out more, go to sftorch2008.org. Once again, that's sftorch2008.org. And in the coming days, there's going to be a lot of heated debates, a lot of internet arguments about returning to Lamaist theocracy and how Westerners are trying to undermine China and are imperialist. The Chinese government is a colonial government. It has colonized Tibet, it has extracted human and mineral resources, and it thinks that after 50 years of oppressing and keeping their hand around the throat of the Tibetan people, that they have lost their identity and their want for a free and independent Tibet. And we have seen that that is not true. In fact, the Tibetan people's allegiance to His Holiness the Dalai Lama is even more powerful. Tibetans' want for independence is even more powerful. I mean, middle school kids, 700 middle school kids protested. 40 of those kids were severely beaten and imprisoned. How insecure is the Chinese government that children threatens the stability of your control? So once again, to Tibetans and their supporters, we need to go to San Francisco on April 8th and 9th. We can't let the Chinese government use the Olympics as a political tool to legitimize their brutal occupation and colonization of Tibet. They're trying to use Yingse, the Rangzhen antelope. They're trying to bring the torch up Mount Everest. They're trying to show that Tibetans are happy and everything's harmonious by featuring Tibetan performances at the opening games. Now's the time to take the glory away from them. The uprising has started. The revolution is continuing. It's up to us to make sure that the Tibetan people's struggle and voice are heard. For more information and up-to-date news, please log on to our website, www.studentsforafreetibet.org, or go on to blog.studentsforafreetibet.org. And to the Tibetans inside Tibet, we don't know if you're getting this because YouTube has been blocked from China, but everyone all over the world supports you. And nga pepa me ini nga sempa pepa yin nye puki chedu soklu tanki los purangzen
Yapuche kali mopogap mila ranse kor lab ranse kor shit tupo negi do shit roba to do shit misi songa na we do shit bit tapo pemi re gami che mache gami all up in the day gami kuma all up in the day gami zuma all up in the day pemi la ranse je gami all up in my day gami go we k my day gami same ja re ranse to gi re asu somre yapo tango re